What is up, guys? Welcome back to another video. Today I am with a great friend and my personal yoga instructor and my personal calisthenics student. I'm her teacher and she's my teacher, Kathy Madeo. Thank you for being on the channel.
It's an honor.
Today we're going to show you the 3 most common yoga poses and commonly misaligned yoga poses so you can do it right with the proper alignment and you can incorporate it into your own practice. Without further ado, let's begin.
Today I'm going to have Gabo do downward facing dog, warrior 2, and triangle pose. We'll get started in downward facing dog.
Let's begin.
So Gabo's going to take the posture here just so you can have a general idea of what the pose looks like. And now I will run through the common misalignments in the pose, starting with our foundation in the hands. It's super common when we start yoga to not be able to bear weight on our hands because we're not used to it. So what tends to happen is we roll to the pinky side of the finger and you'll notice his knuckles are lifting up. And now the issue with this is this causes a lot of pain in the wrist for new students because he's basically bearing weight on the bone in the forearm called the ulna that is not designed to bear weight. But this bone, the radius, is designed to bear weight. So you want to press the index finger and thumb knuckle fingers down and actually ground all knuckles down, and that'll really take a lot of the weight and pressure out of those wrists. The next thing I want to talk about is the shoulders. So I'll actually have Gabo come on down so we can talk a little bit about the direction of the shoulders. So your shoulder blades move in 6 different directions. So when he raises his arms above his head, we call that upward rotation, and you can see his blades kind of go outward like that. And then when he brings his arms down, they go in a downward rotation. Now go ahead and raise your arms above your head again. If he shrugs his shoulders up to his ears, that's called elevation. And if he draws his shoulder blades down and away, that's called depression. Now finally, if he brings his arms or hands out towards the wall and spreads the shoulder blades away from the spine, that's called protraction. And then if he draws the shoulder blades in, that's called retraction. Now one thing, go ahead and relax here, I want to mention is we often conflate the shoulder blades and the shoulder. We tend to call these both the shoulders, and it gets really confusing. I'll have you raise your arm, just your left arm one more time here. So when he rolls his shoulder away from his ear, notice I just said it, I said shoulder, we really mean the upper arm bone, the humerus bone, externally rotates in the shoulder socket. And then this direction is internal rotation. I think a lot of students get very confused in downward facing dog because we often say to roll the shoulder away from the ear, and a lot of people mistake that for depression down. But we don't want that. We want to push the floor away in our downward facing dog. So let's just have a look at what we want the shoulders to look like, actually from this position real quick. So we do an upward rotation. You can't deny that. That's the way the shoulder blades go when we raise our arms over our head. You don't need to squeeze the shoulder blades in. When you do that, that kind of pulls everything and internally rotates those upper arm bones. So you don't want that. You just do the natural upward rotation and then a gentle push of the floor away. So there is a slight elevation. And that is basically your shoulder blades, and then the upper arm bones externally rotate. So this is your downward facing dog. We're gonna put this upside down now. So I'll have Gabo come into downward facing dog.
Okay.
And let's just look at what that looks like upside down. So let's show maybe what not to do. So we don't want to internally rotate the shoulders and squeeze the shoulder blades together. Instead, we want to externally rotate the humerus bone. The natural upward rotation is happening, and you noticed he just pushed the floor away. That's that elevation of the shoulders. So this is a great looking downward facing dog in the shoulders here. Okay, one more final thing I want to talk about in downward facing dog is a tendency, kind of in an effort to get those heels down, to take the pelvis into a posterior position, which is the opposite direction we want. And you'll notice now his low back is rounded. So instead, what I would encourage you to do if you're just starting is to come up off of your heels a little bit onto your tippy toes, bend your knees, and we'll take his pelvis more into an anterior tilt. That's a forward rotation. His sit bones are reaching up, and you'll notice now his spine is nice and long. And this will start to unlock the glutes and the hamstrings and everything, and over time he can begin to straighten his legs, but there's no real need to work those legs straight if that's only going to draw your pelvis under. All right, so let's just have a nice look at your downward facing dog, and we can kind of see all of these elements. Pelvis anteriorly tilted, legs for him are nice and straight, a long spine. You'll notice like a V shape in his body. So that's our downward facing dog. Our next posture is Warrior Two. So we'll have Gabo take the pose. Amazing. So common tendency here is the hip. So this is an external hip rotating standing posture. And all that means is your thigh bones are moving away from your midline in the hip socket. Now, so if you have tight hips, the alignment's going to be a little off. And we tend to notice this kind of slant in the pelvis to compensate for those tight hips. So what you can think about is engaging your glute medius of the back leg and dropping that hip down, and that will lift the front hip up. Now this has a common tendency when we do that, if the hips are tight, to push that front knee forward. And your knee is a hinge joint. It's designed to just go this way, so that can be really injurious on the knee. So this is where we really work that external rotation of the bent leg. So he has to fire off his glute medius and his external hip rotators, and at the same time work his adductors here. Now his quads are in what we call an eccentric contraction. They're contracting but also lengthening, and that's why people get really fatigued in this pose. You probably want to straighten your front leg pretty soon here, huh? Yeah, and take a little break. Let's also just quickly talk about the feet. You want your front heel in line to your center back arch, and the back foot, the outer edge of the foot in line with the back of the mat. Now in terms of the upper body alignment, your shoulders stack right over your hips, belly pulls into spine, shoulder blades are neutral on the back, and the arms reach one away from each other. Your gaze, we call that a drishti in yoga, is just past your middle front finger. And there you have our Virabhadrasana 2. All right, I will see you in the final pose. Our third pose is tree pose, one of the most widely known standing balancing postures in our yoga practice. So Gabo's taking it here. So let's start from the ground up with the feet. We have a common tendency here for most of us to have a collapsed arch or to have an overlifted arch. And so you can actually bring your other foot down, Gabo, because I'm going to keep you here for a minute. Yeah. And if you lift and spread your toes, that will help lift your inner arch and actually fire off the whole inner line of your leg and the muscles there. So now we don't want to, of course, stay here with those lifted toes. So you'll ground the toes back down, but try to keep that sensation of your inner arch lifting up. Now, we tend to kind of lean into the standing leg hip. And so you want to use those glute medius muscles and think of pulling them into the midline of your body. Another thing that happens with this pose, similar to our Warrior Two, is the hips. When we bend a leg, we tend to take that side of the hip with us. So you want to drop that outer hip down and then lift the left hip up in his case. Now from there, if he pushes his right sole of the foot into his standing leg, that will kind of ignite the adductors of the standing leg. So the adductors and the glute medius are both working to stabilize his femur bone in the hip socket. Beautiful. So from there, keep dropping your right hip down, Gabo. Excellent. From there, his arms are in a V shape. The pinky side of the finger is spinning in, and his humerus bone, his upper arm bone, is in an external rotation. So lovely. I'm going to show you a great way to use the wall to find balance in this posture. So we'll have Gabo turn to the side, beautiful, and he will take tree pose. And what he's going to do basically is take his knee to the wall. And he can actually press his knee into the wall, and that will create some nice resistance, which will really help him fire up. I can already see his glute medius muscles, the outer hip muscles are really working there to stabilize. And then it kind of takes the pressure off of balancing, so you can really find the alignment in your body. And we can talk a little bit more about the upper body now. So shoulders stack on top of his hips. The arms reach up above him. The elbow joint is in extension, so his arms are straight, and those upper arm bones externally rotate. So you can really reach the crown of your head up, and our gaze, again, drishti in the yoga practice is just past the nose there. Beautiful. And then of course you would do both sides, and that is our tree posture.
Amazing. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoy Kathy's amazing class and information, leave it in the comment section down below. Let us know what else you want to see on this channel. I'm gonna be doing more videos with her. If also you guys want that, leave it in the comment section down below. Like, share, subscribe, all that YouTube stuff, and I'll see you all next week. Watch out. Without further ado, let's begin.
We'll start in downward facing dog.
There goes
right,
music
okay.
there. Good, that's the blooper. We got the blooper. We got the blooper. That's good because we always put bloopers at the end.